Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle. As usual, I'm your boy Adam Taylor, and as usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Tim Shields. What's poppin', Tim?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Nothing much. It's earlier for me.
Yeah,
Happy to be talking about some Celtics Hornets comeback there.
some Celtics basketball, baby. Summer League, maybe. I mean, it's Summer League, but it's still Celtics basketball. They're wearing green jerseys. That's enough for me. As long as it's not Bucks
hmm
green, I'm fine. If you're new here, I cover the Boston Celtics for SB Nation, USA Today, and the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Sign up for free with the link in the description below, or you can go for a paid account, whichever one you prefer. Tim is formerly of CLNS Media and is also over on SB Nation with CelticsBlog.com. And we're going to look at what we saw from the Celtics Summer League game against the Hornets yesterday. If you're watching this today, obviously we're recording on Thursday. They played on Wednesday. I don't really want to look at the game as a whole. It's a Summer League game. Yeah, you can look at strategy, but what it doesn't really mean much. We're not learning much heading into the new season based off what they're running in Summer League. There were a few plays that I liked that I'd like to see translate over. If you want to hear more about that, go to the newsletter. That's where that stuff gets spoke about. First thing I want to touch on is I've got a little bit of a Summer League crush on Anton Watson. I think this dude is legit, really, really like his game. Now, just because I like his game, I like what he brings to the table, I like his skill set. Doesn't mean I think he's going to pop in the NBA straight away. He's a little bit of a tweener in terms of size between the 4 and the 5. He's what, 6'8, 6'9. Needs to improve defensively in terms of physicality. He's got good versatility, can guard up on the perimeter, can do a bunch of things there. But it's the offensive game, right? That he's a bit of a creation hub on the perimeter, can initiate DHOs, is a good screener, knows when to roll, and then has started to flash his 3-point shooting, especially in the corner. There's patience there as well. Like, he lets plays unfold when he's operating as the ball handler in the delay, which is a fancy way of saying the big man's on the perimeter in a 5 out and the ball's in the big man's hands. Big fan of what he's doing right now, just in terms of proving himself. When he was drafted by the Celtics, he cited Al Horford as somebody who built his game around. And you can see flashes there just in the patience, the creation hub on the perimeter, everything we've just spoke about. I do think he needs to learn from Al in terms of defensively understanding how to cut off angles and how to use angles to your advantage to kind of make up for a little bit of lack of size, lack of athleticism. Good pick, late second round pick. Expecting him to pop is unfair because you don't go that late in the second without some big question marks over what you bring to the table. Size was obviously one of them, lack of athleticism probably being another. But overall, I've really liked what we saw from him in Summer League so far. And I'm hoping that he can at least earn some minutes. I mean, he's coming into a team with a stacked big man rotation, and I feel like he might struggle at the 4 in the NBA just because of that lack of defensive positioning right now. I wouldn't say IQ, it's just understanding where he needs to be. Might take him a minute, so maybe a season in Maine. How are you feeling about what we've seen from Watson so far?
I think between Watson and Shireman, I think we've seen a lot of IQ. I think it's hard to compare it with the Summer League because you have a lot of guys who are still fighting for spots on rosters, but the way that they've played overall between him and Shireman, just high IQ, able to read situations, knowing where to like relocate and move to. There was a couple times, little savvy things like that. There was one where he stepped into, I want to say it was the fourth quarter, where up faked on the three, stepped into a long two and hit it. Just the confidence, the execution, just doing overall like the little things that you want him to do. And they were honestly giving him the green light from 3-point range. I think 3 and 9 from the night, but 6 of 12 from the field. This is encouraging because in terms of, again, when I always come back to wings, especially younger guys, when we're trying to get minutes in the NBA, specifically on the Celtics, a team that, again, defending a championship, you need to be able to shoot the three-pointer and you need to be able to know where to be. And those are like two big steps in the right direction. And for Anton Watson to come in, he's 23 years old. So like physically, there's not going to be a lot of change there. He's not going to physically grow any bigger. There's not a lot of like frame to fill out. So what you're looking at physically is what you're going to get. And the rest is just going to come down to execution and knowing where to be. And the fact is that the fact that he's able to know where to be and try and hustle and get to those spots and do what he needs to do, those little things, it makes a big difference in terms of if he's going to get playing time. Now, I don't know if he's going to get a two-way or if he's going to get a full-on contract. And that's where like things get really tricky because there's a lot of guys in Summer League that I look at as promising. But to be honest, Shireman's been good, but I feel like Watson surprised me a little bit. I think like Shireman got put out there as like this offensive piece, and he's obviously having his shooting struggles right now. But I have faith that will like work itself out. But Watson having the night that he had, and he's had some really solid offensive performances, that shooting stroke from three looks pretty good. That first three-pointer that he hit was like a rainbow shot, just really pretty arc, and it looks clean. So it's promising. I didn't expect the shooting touch is what I'm saying.
Repeatable. That's the word I used on socials yesterday. Repeatable. It's repeatable shooting mechanics. Everything just looks fluid. There's no hitch. There's no over emphasis on a load up for the shot. You mentioned that kind of mid-range where you took a dribble in. I like to call those one dribble pull-ups, and you do that to attack the closeout, right? You've got a guy rotating over, he's going to close out, you take that one dribble, let him fly by you, and now you've got that open jumper. It's something that Sam Hauser worked on this season. We saw Sam Hauser start to take one or two dribbles off the perimeter to attack when a defense closed out on him, so he could go into that mid-range jumper. Hauser's still working on that. Feels like Watson just felt comfortable. He's definitely looked better shooting in the corners than he has on the perimeter, which is fine. But if you're going to use him as like a DHO hub and you're going to ask him to thrive around the top of that perimeter as a screening guy, as a screen and pop, they used him as a pop guy, I think, in one or two Spain actions. If you're going to be asking him to do that, then I would like to see him get more comfortable shooting from there, get comfortable attacking those closeouts with those one or two dribbles, and then flowing into whatever you need to, a pull-up, or you can dish it off and then roll, whatever you need to do. But overall, I agree. I think that he's a high IQ guy, polished. The two-way contract's definitely interesting to me because if you look at Jordan Walsh from last season, Walsh was drafted in the second round. He was expected to sign a two-way, ended up signing a multi-year deal, but still being like sent down to Maine anyway because you don't have to be on a two-way to be sent down. Watson's upside versus his IQ and his polish kind of make me feel confident that maybe they give him a full contract similar to Walsh, but put him in Maine. Just because you never know what you're going to need when the postseason comes, and two-way guys are ineligible for the postseason. So I am a little curious there. Again, it's a late second-round pickup. Expecting too much from him just because he's had a good game or two in Summer League is a trap that we fall into every year. Not us necessarily, but us as a collective fan base. And I'm not just talking about a Celtics fan base. I'm talking about the entire NBA fan base for every team.
Royal we.
Yeah, the royal we. You look at how guys play in the Summer League, you start imagining how they're going to fit at the NBA level. It's not realizing, but not really caring that the nuance is, hey, the next step up is the biggest step out of all of them. And sometimes you can get disappointed. So I am trying to be cautious here. But he's definitely, I came into Summer League expecting to be wooed by Baylor Shireman, and I have been. But Watson's really stood out to me as like that. Surprise! I'm here, you know what I mean? So I've enjoyed him. I've really enjoyed watching him play. Really like his game.
Yeah, and I think surprise is probably the nice thing. And this kind of happens sometimes with Summer League. You never know who's going to be on the Summer League roster. Some of these guys just come in, or they've been bouncing around the league for a couple years, find a nice landing spot, and then they end up sticking it out. And that's kind of where things end up going with certain guys. I think another guy that it might happen to is Jamias Ramsey. And I don't know if you've kind of been keeping an eye on him. And it's interesting because, I think he was with the Kings before.
Yeah, he was.
In terms of how long he's been around, he was a pick from 2020, second rounder, 43rd overall, it looks like. And, honestly, kind of nice scoring touch there. He was part of that comeback against the Hornets. And I think right now, I want to say he's averaging almost 15 points through these Summer League games. I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is a guy that makes a roster anywhere, or if he's even, I don't know if he's eligible for another two-way, because I know that there's restrictions on that with the NBA now, but that's another name that kind of caught my eye. I just don't, this is the hard part about Summer League, is you see guys come out and you want them to do well, and you want them to make a roster, or you want them to make your roster. But you never really know how it's going to pan out. And that's one of those guys that might get caught up in the mix. Jalen House is another guy that I think of too when it comes to that stuff. But what are your thoughts on Jamias Ramsey, what you've seen?
Yeah, I feel like he kind of reminds me of Jay Scrub from last year, right? High high scorer in terms of high motor, microwave scorer off the bench, can create his own shot, can create off the dribble, create for others because of the carnage he causes on penetration, because you do have to be careful there. He's super quick, got a decent perimeter jumper on him too. So there's a world where I'm like, yeah, this is the type of microwave scorer that makes sense deep off the bench, where we can give you 3 or 4 minutes in a game if all of a sudden everybody's cold and you just need that jolt, right? Or it's a close game and you just want to kind of create a little bit of separation going into the half or coming out of the half. You want to kind of chase down a lead. That makes sense to me. I think Ramsey's looked quite limited defensively overall, just in terms of his ability to switch, stay glued to his man, not get beat off the bounce. If you want to play on this Celtics team, you need to play defense. For everyone that looks at Boston and they're like, yo, the perimeter 3-point shooting is their identity. It's not. It's still defense. Defense is the Celtics' identity. And you can see that by the way that the Summer League Celtics really locked down defensively in that fourth quarter when they were chasing the game a little bit. They always go back to defense when their backs are against the wall, and that's usually when your identity comes out. So I think Ramsey's lack of defense kind of negates the scoring punch he's going to give you, right? And that, to me, is an issue where I don't see the Celtics taking a dice roll on him, because there's other scorers they got already on the roster or in the G League that they could lean into that wouldn't mean filling a roster spot. You know, if you can lean into a two-way guy for about 50 games a year, you don't really need to sign an extra guy and fill a roster spot to do that. So I do like Ramsey. I think he's put himself in the shop window. I think that if you look at other teams around the NBA, there are situations that need a microwave scorer, and they have either they don't care about where their defense is because they're rebuilding and they're in that Cooper flag race, or they have the defense behind him that you can kind of sustain 3 or 4 minutes a game with him coming off the bench. You can make an argument Boston can do that, but again, they already have enough scoring talent there that I don't feel it's a super big need. But I think he's done a good job of showcasing what he can do, and I think if he doesn't make an NBA roster this year, there'll be European teams willing to take him in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the cool thing about Summer League. You see guys get more opportunity. Another guy that I was looking at was Jalen House, only because, again, it's Eddie House's son. Like, I don't think he makes an NBA roster. I'm not really certain about it just because he's a little undersized, 6 feet, I think. Just when it comes to those situations, I wonder if he ends up getting like a G League or maybe a two-way contract. The Celtics are kind of in this interesting spot where they don't feel that pressure to go one way or another.
Yeah.
Like, they've got the forwards, they've got the size they need. If anything, they need wing talent, and then they should probably keep one of their guard prospects to kind of develop, and also potentially, like we've talked about before, but like, you know, challenge Peyton Pritchard a little bit when it comes to those reserve roles. So like JD Davison, I hope he sticks around. I've been honestly impressed with the playmaking. I think the playmaking was really good. He had a couple really nice passes and reads, a couple kickouts, a couple lobs in this game against Charlotte where he looked really good. And I'm hoping we see more of that. But Jalen House, do you think he makes like a two-way deal, you think?
Nah. I think his speed changed the game against Charlotte. I think that he really checked into that game and just changed the entire rhythm, the entire flow. He was super fast, very aggressive. I actually liked the way he played. But this was the first time we've seen him all Summer League. If he had any chance of making a two-way spot, he would have been playing already. The fact that he doesn't get minutes until Jaden Springer sits, Nemi sits, Peterson sits. Once you're missing guys and he steps in, like if you're a deep bench in case of emergency guy in Summer League, like no disrespect, but I'm not feeling very confident about your chance of sticking this year. You might go and find a G League team willing to give you some bench minutes, and I hope he does. But I'm not super confident there at all. You mentioned JD Davison. I wanted to have a discussion on him as well. Just, I'm probably a little bit in a polarizing camp here, and I'm not doing it just to say it. Like, I genuinely believe this. You can go through my socials, you can read the newsletter. Like, I'm not sold that JD Davison is an NBA player right now. Like, I think he's in this weird spot, right? Like, here's the G League, here's the NBA. Davison's somewhere here. Like he's
Purgatory.
too good for the G League, not good enough for the NBA. He's added that deceleration to his game, that Luka Doncic slow step. I really like it. His body control's better. He understands how to vary his speed, so he's using his athleticism to his advantage. But he's not embracing contact. He's not creating separation of contact. And he kind of panics once the defense collapses on him. So those things there, when you've got a driving dish playmaker, that's great. If he's beating you off the dribble and getting the ball out of his hands in 1 or 2 steps, fantastic. Once he hits the paint and the defense rotates, he falls apart. And that's not something you want against an NBA defense when guys recover quicker, they close out quicker, they rotate faster, they're bigger, they're stronger, more athletic. The shot to me has looked okay, but it hasn't looked to a point where I'm like, yo, that's automatic in the league. And then defensively, he's been cooked on slip screens. He's really struggled just guarding the pick and roll in general. There was a play yesterday where there was a switch on the pick and roll. And instead of going with the big, which is what he should have done, he should have switched and like gone with the big to try and tag the roll and wait for the recovery. He kind of jumped out to hedge the ball handler, hoping to take the pass away, right? But when he hedged, the big didn't recover anyway. So now you've got the roller that's just wide open for the pass. And Davison's not big enough to impact that passing lane the way that hedge was intended. It was just a bad decision, lack of communication. They've been prevalent throughout the summer league. It's like the first 3 games of summer league. I'm not super sold on him defensively on the perimeter. I've just got a few questions. I'm like, yo, you're a third year guy. You're coming into your third year. You should be a standout on this summer league team. You should be the one dominating, like controlling the play, pace of play. I'm not saying you need to be like Brandon Miller has been, where he's been shut down because you know that dude's going to be an all-star. But what I'm saying is you should be quite dominant. You should be leading the team in points, assists, everything. And you're not. The tweet I put out yesterday actually said, like, Davison looks like he fits at this level, and that's not a good thing. In 3 years, you should be exceeding. So I'm not sold on Davison being an NBA player. For anyone that was hoping he was going to get some rotation minutes this year, it could happen, but I think they're going to be few and far between. I'm not sold on him at all right now. He's behind Springer, Payton, Drew, Derek. If you want to put Shireman in that kind of range, go for it. Like, Davison's looked good. He has. But he hasn't shown enough for me to be like, that's an NBA guy. He's just not there.
Yeah, and that's where I wonder where he gets it. If he's eligible, I think, for one more 2-way contract, right?
Yeah, he can have another 2-way. I'm assuming he does, because he has taken massive steps from the player he was when he came into the NBA to the player he is now. It's night and day, but he needs to take a big jump now to go from that purgatory space into a back end of rotation guard. And I just don't think he sticks with Boston. I think he sticks somewhere else, maybe. You know what I mean? But the rotation is too deep in the Celtics. The guard rotation is just so strong. And it's just going to be a tough sell for him. So I'm not super high on him right now. I do think he's played well. He's put a good of account of himself. It's just Boston isn't the right place for him, and he hasn't developed as quickly as what he needed to put himself in a position to really command a spot on that main roster.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like, that's kind of where I'm at with him as well. I don't think there's not been enough improvement from what you're expecting. I think based on where he's been at and how many minutes he's been getting in the G League and everything like that, I think they want to keep him around one more time. But again, I think they've also been kind of keeping those 2-way contracts open as much as they can.
Yeah, it's the Britney Spears thing, right? They just want him to hit him, baby, one more time and see what happens.
And I mean, I'm hoping.
Their loneliness is killing them. And sorry. Yeah, other than that, like, I don't really have many more takeaways. I thought Tyler Cook looked good. I thought Tyler Cook was actually really interesting. Defended well, was a good creation hub, showed some dominance around the rim. What I really liked was that one left-handed dunk where he just exploded up from
that. Yeah.
It's that aggression around the rim. When in the last episode I was talking about Nemi commanding his space and being more physical around the rim. That is exactly what I was talking about. You want that mentality, but you want it from Nemi, right? Because Cook did a great job of commanding his space on both sides of the floor throughout that game. He, to me, was one of the standout players off the Celtics roster against Charlotte. I really enjoyed everything he did. I want Nemi to do that. And if Nemi can do that, oh boy, he's going to be tough next season. Other than that, I thought everything you wanted to see, you saw. It was a summer league game. I don't know how much more we can really talk about it. It was fun. They play again tomorrow. We're back here Saturday talking about another game. It was going to be fun. But other than that, look, this isn't the championship Celtics. This might be the summer league champions, maybe, possibly, potentially.
know.
But it's been
Kept it
fun.
alive. Yeah. Amen to that.
Amen. Until then, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the newsletter. Show me and Tim some love. Really appreciate everybody that's tuned in, and especially if you've made it all the way to the end. Tim, anything you want to say before we bounce?
Cheers.
Peace out.